Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Newgen Q4 FY21 earnings call hosted by ICICI Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Hardik Sangani. I now hand over the call to Mr. Hardik Sangani. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thank you, Malika. Good evening everyone and welcome to the Q4 FY21 results of Newgen Software Technologies Limited. I hope everyone is keeping safe and are well. Connecting with me today from the management side is Mr. Diwakar Nigam, Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Varadarajan, Full-Time Director, Mr. Virender Ji, Senior VP Sales and Marketing and Product, Mr. Arun Gupta, Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Dipti Mehra Chugh, Head Investor Relationships. I now hand over the call to Ms. Dipti for further proceedings. Thank you and over to Dipti.
Thank you, Hardik. Good evening all, and welcome you to the Q4 and full year results of FY21. I hope all of you are keeping safe in these difficult times and following the COVID protocols. Connecting with me virtually is the Newgen management. Hardik has already introduced them to you. Before we move on to the discussion, let me highlight that this call may contain certain forward-looking statements concerning Newgen's future business prospects and profitability, which are subject to a number of risks and uncertainties, and actual numbers could materially vary. Past performance may not be indicative of future performance. The company does not undertake to make any announcement in case any of these forward-looking statements become materially incorrect in future or update these statements made from time to time by or on behalf of the company. I would now hand over to Mr. Nigam for presentation of the results. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at our Q4 2021 post-result conference call. These are difficult times as we witness the second and the third wave of COVID-19 across the world. I trust you and your family members are safe and hope that you are all following COVID protocol. Such times test the strength of people and enterprise, and we need to collectively work towards overcoming the situation. Safety and well-being of our employees and their families is our first priority. During this last year of COVID, we have had our share of setbacks, but our COVID volunteer team have done an exemplary work in supporting each and every member of Newgen family, from providing medical and financial assistance, arranging doctors, consultants, and beds, and especially taking care of the family members and loved ones as well. I appreciate and salute their spirit. Further, we are also collaborating with multiple hospitals and other agencies to organize vaccination camps for Newgenites and their families across multiple locations at our cost. We are continuing our operation in a remote working environment since the past 1 year, and also designing our organization to become more resilient and agile. We are also working on building an efficient hybrid organization that will bring forth increased productivity and yet provide better work-life balance for the employees. We are transforming complete work culture to a more result-oriented one, and HR admin to become touchless but more responsive to Newgenites' needs. Our focus has been on ensuring uninterrupted and quality service to our customers, and we have a comprehensive and foolproof program in place to ensure this. It includes synchronized cloud-based continuity strategy, product-based implementation framework, and development of support zones with direct presence in multiple countries. During this COVID time, we have not only supported our customers remotely, but also built new solutions for them to fulfill their fresh requirements. We have received encouraging appreciation from our customers across the board for our continued support. Result FY21. Coming to the results in FY21, we have shown a resilient performance and clocked revenue of 673 crores. We are supporting about 550 active customers across 72 countries for their mission critical mode applications. We continue to witness business momentum and expanded customer engagement. We are happy to share that US is now our largest revenue contributor and one of the fastest growing markets at 31%, growing at 16% YOY. Our subscription revenues witnessed a growth of 19% during the year. Our overall annuity revenues remain consistent, contributing 58% of the revenue. However, our support services revenues have been impacted due to the shift from on-site model, as we have mentioned in the last few quarters as well. But still, margin profile of offshore support is better. The important thing is transitioning to subscription model. I think we have been transitioning from our existing model of new license revenue and ATS to subscription-based revenue with most of our new customers. Even for our existing customers, wherever possible, we are building additional annuity-based revenue model. This model will start revenue optimization plus maximization over next few years. We believe in time we would be able to transform most of our existing customers also into cloud/on-premises subscription model. This transformation would lead us to faster growth rates in coming years. In last year, we added 67 new logos under our umbrella. Many of our new logos are based on cloud subscription, and hence their real effect is expected to be reflecting in the coming year. This year, some of our customers have requested for deferment of annuity payments due to financial difficulties in their country. We hope that they would come back once the normalcy returns. Enhanced product platform. I think this year we worked very hard on our products and Newgen Enterprise Content Services, low-code application development, and personalized communication management platform all are achieving better industry recognition from customers, analysts, and most importantly, our GSI channel. Our natively developed product platforms are ideal for digital transformation. They complement each other for building end-to-end digital solutions for enterprises. They continue to be leading in their category. Prominent industry analysts have taken notice of our products and innovation. During the year, company appeared for the first time in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Enterprise Low-Code Application Platform as a niche player. It also has been positioned as visionary in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for Content Services Platform. While most of our competition is with companies that have accumulated products bought from different companies at different times on different technologies and refurbished to mix and match. Newgen product platform are built on a unified architecture, ensuring compatibility and seamless integration. Our customers as well as GSI partners are appreciating our offerings because of multiple reasons. Homogenized cloud offering of combined solution as needed, easy integration into more platforms, flexible and comprehensive support, availability on AWS as well as Azure platform. Newgen makes continuous investment in R&D, has a strong team of about 470 employees, which constantly focuses on various research and product development initiatives and enhancement of product portfolio. We have been granted 3 patents during the year, taking our total patent grants to 18. In the past year, we have made various enhancements on our low-code development platform and with improved user interfaces. We have also worked on our new content services-based ECM platform for cloud deployment this year. As an organization, we have been using a named account approach for enterprise sales. Majority of the sales traditionally has been through our direct sales team, comprising of about 300 people, supported by large network of channel partners. In terms of verticals, banking and financial services, government and PSUs, and insurance were the key drivers throughout the year. We have more than 15 accelerators in these areas that are matured and are being used in many organizations. This year as well, a new accelerator for trade finance system in banking has been added. Our last 5 years, Newgen has successfully implemented over 500 accelerator-based solutions for our large customers. They have achieved the desired result for our customer and are working in mission-critical mode 24/7 at our client organization. For the year, we are going to build a powerful new Newgen brand and enhancing our marketing and sales organization. We are making aggressive investment in branding initiatives to enhance visibility of our product platform in mature markets. This year, we are planning to substantially increase our marketing budget and spending on digital events, digital presence, and analyst engagement. As we move deeper in mature market of North America, Europe, and APAC, we are targeting Fortune 2000 enterprises through partnership with global system integrators. Our initiative in enterprise markets are bearing fruit. Our products have found traction in these enterprises. We have also built acceptance from some of the largest GSIs. Their large customers have chosen our platform, and GSIs have successfully implemented the solutions using that. We are supporting these GSIs in modernizing solutions and building their IT using low-code applications. We are working extensively with sales and delivery leaders and consulting arms of GSIs. We have also developed world-class portal to educate, train, and support our GSI developer community. We have developed internal GSI and enterprise team and ecosystem. A senior sales leader has been added to orchestrate the enterprise and GSI sales effort. We are also adding experienced and relevant sales teams in all major geographies. This year, we have won 8 large orders to GSI, including a large deal win of the world's largest investment management company, managing about 6.3 trillion in global assets. We have also won a deal of a global life insurance group focusing on acquisition and managing of portfolios of life insurance policies. We are developing a strong and increasing GSI-based sales funnel. We currently have 40 plus cases in different stage of discussion with GSI, valued at around 140 crores. During the year, the company has also adopted a strategic approach to cost management and cash flow optimization. Our EBITDA was up by 83% YOY at 192 crores, and profit after tax was up 74% YOY at rupees 127 crores. Net cash generated from operating activities was rupees 216 crores, driven by our consistent focus on liquidity, cash management, and strong collection. We are optimizing our execution capabilities by continuing with long-term investments in R&D and sales. Currently, R&D expense comprises about 10% of the sales. Seeing growth potential in coming times, we will continue to increase our efforts and investments in these directions. As we continue to work on our debtor days, our net trade receivable have been reducing. As on March 31st, 2021, is rupees 239 crores, which resulted in net DSO 129 crores. Coming to the Q4 result. In Q4, our revenues witnessed strong sequential growth, reaching rupees 200 crores. EBITDA was up by 28% YOY at 66 crores. Profit after tax went up by 27% YOY at rupees 53 crores. We made 17 new customer logos adding in the last quarter. Some notable successes include 7 new logos in Americas region, largely in banking and financial services and insurance domain. A strategic project win for license implementation at one of the leading private universal banks in the Philippines, and a mid-sized project for a statutory board of Government of Singapore. Given our product capabilities, a motivated, experienced team, our renewed sales approach, and continued investment, we believe we are well poised to capitalize the opportunity in the digital transformation space. With a strong balance sheet and cash position, we are now ready to make deep investments on various fronts across technology, sales, and marketing for long-term growth. We will remain agile to address the challenges of the current environment and drive consistent and cash growth over the medium to long term. We are now open for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Hardik Sangani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Sure. Hey, I have a couple of questions. In terms of first, primarily as US economy has opened and the travel is in place right now. So how do we see in terms of our offerings or in terms of revenues going forward in FY22? And secondly, as Mr. Nigam earlier mentioned about revamping or maybe making the GSI initiative. So incrementally, what are we changing in terms of our approach by partnering with GSI? And thirdly, is in terms of the investments needed. So will it be more of an inorganic approach as we have a strong balance sheet in place? And what area specifically will we need to invest in next year to get towards the growth which we had for in mid-teens or 20% earlier? Yeah, that's it from me.
Yeah, Hardik, thank you. This is Jeet. We have got 3 questions. I think you're true. The US and rest of the, at least the mature markets, the things seem to be much better, and the markets seem to have opened up. And you can see that as part of our results also. Even last year, the US for us has performed well. It has grown at 16% with a lot of cases. One of the issues which Mr. Nigam mentioned that most of the orders in mature markets are on subscription basis. So revenue is slightly back-ended. So we think that the momentum of that growth, both in our banking and the enterprise space, both will continue. We'll keep on investing in our digital channels, keep on investing into our direct sales effort out there, as well as the GSI effort. So we do expect that for the coming year, US will be one of the primary growth drivers for us. On the GSI initiative, I think what it is predominantly what we have seen traditionally, as we explained in the call. Traditionally, we are focused on typically the top tier accounts in emerging markets, which is India, Middle East, and APAC. And in US, we used to primarily focus on the mid-tier banks. and which were typically in the what you call a range of around 800 banks. Now with the GSI initiative, we have gone aggressively and we are focusing on globally the Fortune 2000 companies. Now, Fortune 2000 companies, the sales cycles, if we go direct sales, is going to be much longer and more complicated. While on the other hand, GSIs, all the GSIs, major GSIs, have got great success stories with Newgen platform. Over the last 5-7 years, we have gone jointly to customers, but they have been more tactical. Now, I think there is a strategic push to create that as one of the top growth drivers and as the sales drivers. And last year we got our success stories. We got 8 wins. And coming this year also, we expect this to be a big part of our growth this year. On the investment front, I think our predominant investments are still on the areas which we are concentrating on. That's about getting the brand up in front of Fortune 2000, getting the investment in digital channels, ramping up sales structures for GSI, as well as the product portfolio. So investments are still in the organic shape. We are not still, whenever we consider inorganic, we'll let you know. But right now, there is enough leeway and enough scope on our, what is on the table. So we can come back quickly to our 20% growth, and even then the idea is to push it further to more than 20% growth. Does that answer your question, Hardik?
Yeah. That actually answers. And secondly, in terms of India-centric business, so as we are seeing COVID second wave, so are we seeing any additional stress in terms of our receivables or in terms of conducting our businesses especially within government and PSU side?
Yeah, so I think last 3 years we've been very conservative on the order quality, and when we're pursuing the government businesses, we don't take undue risks. But the overall market, you see, in India, we have not witnessed any growth. Most of the growth, we have a small single-digit growth, has come from our existing accounts. And on the new logo acquisition, things have started moving up. But again, we are in this middle of, kind of a very big crisis in the second wave. As the year unfolds, I think over the next, what you call third and fourth quarter, the India should start picking up, because inherently there's a huge demand for our kind of products in the digital area. So the opportunity is there on the table, but I think we need to have the market still to realize. In terms of any risks on the collections and other things, I think we are taking care of that by the better business practices. And you will see, in spite of the territories like Middle East slowing down and India slowing down, we have still done much better on receivables and brought down the DSOs significantly and committed.
Okay. That's it from my side for now. I'll come back in the call.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We would like to remind participants that you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Agam Shah from Large Trading. Please go ahead.
Two questions, sir. I think you just said the previous participants couldn't answer that India has relatively not grown that much, and you're seeing much of demand. So can we say that now going ahead, India might outperform vis-a-vis this year?
Sorry if I get your question right. I think we still see the mature markets outperforming as part of our overall growth strategy, because that's where the larger market space is available. But we do expect that India to revive back and come to its traditional growth rates. It may take few quarters. As soon as things start improving, I think things in India will improve. But broadly for us as a company, you will see higher growth rates coming from more mature markets.
Okay, and margins will be sustainable at these levels?
I think this year, there is because there were two large heads. So there was a kind of an optimization in SG&A because of most of the operational activities, and there is a huge optimization on travel. Travel is kind of our sales and marketing and service delivery travel. I think some of that optimization will carry forward and will remain as the business model has transformed. But the margins, the EBITDA margins and the PAT margins, EBITDA of 28% is not sustainable for this year, because we'll have to invest in growth. We have to increase the manpower salaries. There are cost pressures.
What will be the sustainable number?
I think we have been always projecting that we should be able to come to a sustainable number of between anyway 23 to 25% EBITDA margins and somewhere between 18 to 19% PAT margins. And that's what have been our projections before the last 2 years of COVID. And I think we will attempt to be around that number.
And on a top line on the business front, we should be able to grow by 15 to 20% at least this year, right?
Yeah, so I think it may be very difficult to predict an exact number, but I think this year we are projecting for a growth year. We are not, it's not going to be like last year. We were looking at more about managing business and preserving cash. I think this year we are investing in growth, and the early signs are we should be able to show growth in coming quarters.
Okay, and as a percentage of your revenue, SaaS is already, let's say, around 7%. So when do you see it going in next 2 to 3 years?
Yes, I think substantially. I think we should look at, rather than just SaaS, I think we should look at the subscription because that's the nature. It's a kind of annuity, whether it's an in-premise annuity or in a cloud annuity. So we have roughly around 200 crores of what you call subscription revenue. And we think that this will start growing that, at a higher, at least about 20%, while the SaaS may grow at more than 30-40%. So, but overall subscription will grow about 20% year after year. And even can accelerate.
So maybe can it become a 50% of your revenue by next 3 years? A subscription?
I think that's what we are trying for. I think in the next 3 years we would expect that subscription revenue should become. Today, I think if you look at our annuity revenues are at 50%. But those annuity revenues do also have a component which is called support, which is support services, which has got what you call the service margins profile. But while annuity revenues have got product margins. So together we are at 58%, but the idea is the subscription part should reach 50% in next 2 to 3 years.
So when this happens, the margins will also expand?
Yeah, so but I think, margin also means higher investments in sales and marketing, higher investments in product and R&D. So we should target around 25% EBITDA margins, and beyond that we should keep on investing in growth. That's the idea.
Okay, and any new hirings or all done?
New hiring?
Any new hirings? Which I believe you did two new hirings last
senior
quarter,
management.
At the senior management level. No, see, I think it's not an end of it. So continuously as we are growing, we'll keep on looking at. But they're not substantial. They are part of the organic budget which can be incorporated in the year. There's nothing drastic, but we'll keep on hiring some more senior people as the year goes by.
Okay, good. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please limit your questions to 2 per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, would request you to rejoin the queue. The next question is from the line of Jitendra Chawla, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Couple of questions. First is that we've been generating very strong cash flows last few years. As a result, including our financial investments, our cash pile is almost like 400 crores, if I'm not mistaken. And our business doesn't require a lot of investments to grow. But yet we are paying very small dividends. And I'm not sure whether you've considered any buybacks. But if you're not doing any acquisitions, is there any plans of doing buybacks or increasing the dividend payouts? That's number one. Number second is on your US business. Last year we benefited because of this Paycheck Protection Program, and I'm sure we acquired a lot of customers through that. What has been the engagement after that with these customers? Are we seeing new opportunities with these clients? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jitendra. I think first on the cash flow, I think we are not at 400 crores. We are more at around 250, 280 crores. See, I think we have given this direction that overall for our kind of a company, we should build a reserve roughly around 6 months of our costs. So we are almost near that now. And I think in this uncertain time, which was like this year, I think we didn't consider, getting that. We did increase the dividend payout ratios, but going further, you're right. If we don't have any plans for inorganic, we'll be considering, looking at ways of getting the money back to the shareholders. So that's for the first question. For the second, you're right. On the PPP side, most of the logos on PPP side, we have already started generating opportunities. In fact, we are in the process of closing few of them. all these banks are showing further potential of giving us opportunities. So the business we got last year in the PP account was predominantly on acquisition. It was not a large number. It was less than $1.5 million, which would have been the total business value on these accounts. But their potential over this year can be a few more million.
Okay, great. If I may ask one small question again. Yeah, in your earnings release, you mentioned about a large transformation deal with the PSU bank. Can you give some more color on this?
Large transformation deal with the PSU bank.
No, it is not PSU bank. It is a U.S. investment house.
US, okay. So basically, these are when we are talking of these clients, these are typically Fortune 2000 clients, which were outside our preview of direct sales. It was very difficult to get in that. Now with the GSIs, we have been able to break into those accounts. And the idea is that once you break into that, the per account potential realization over next 3-4 years can be much higher than our traditional account base. So I'm sorry, I can only divulge that much because these all banks' names and what we do for them is quite under confidentiality.
If I may get a clarification on this front, Mr. Nigam mentioned, I think we have some 140 crores of orders under discussion under the GSI route. What would be this number last year, if you can share that?
I don't have the number, but I can get in touch with Dipti and she can share that number.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Palak Agarwal from Newgen Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Palak, go ahead. This is Palak from Snowball Capital. So I have a question on the GSI sales that we are trying to achieve. I would believe that these GSIs are not exclusive and they would be carrying products from our competitors as well. So, so what makes these GSIs, put forward our products compared to our competitors when they are pitching to our clients? How does that work, if you can give some color on that?
Yeah, Palak, thank you for asking that. So, Palak, it's true. So, GSIs are traditionally, they have been carrying products, the ones we have, they have products from Appian, Pega, OpenText, and they've been carrying to these global customers. What has changed over a period of, first of all, with organically over the last 5-7 years, we have generated a lot of success stories with the GSIs on different accounts across the globe. So their confidence in our product and platform has really grown. We have excellent success cases. Finally, the GSIs also are looking at a great piece of technology, but beyond that, they're also looking at the customer success, where they have a surety that the use cases will get fulfilled. So what has happened that as a part of that, our relationships have really grown. So we are concentrating on a series of 4 to 5 GSIs where we are having more strategic tie-ups, where they are taking our products to their practice areas, having the kind of sales targets on our products, and really looking. And now, why should they take our product with the product? There is a, as Mr. Nigam clarified in his call, this is a great value prop. We are one of the few players who have multiple products from the same stable built on the same platform and technology, which are used in a single digital transformation case. So what happens, the complexity for the end customer and the GSI drastically reduce and thus reduce their cost of ownership. Very, very compelling value prop. In some of the cases which we have done that is around ECM modernization, implementing low code for new application and digital solutions, customer communication, transformation of those projects. So we have got good stories, and it's not an easy journey to say why GSI would take our product, but I think the hard work has been done over 5-6 years. Now we are seeing the green shoots of that, what we have invested over 5-6 years with these GSIs, building the credibility. So we are one of the few companies who are consistently in Gartner's and Forrester Magic Quadrants. That gives the comfort both to the customer and the GSI. And then with our assurance and a strong relationship in India, which is a back-end tie-up we have, I think that is what is helping. I hope that answers your question.
No, that does, sir. Thank you for answering that. So the related question to that is, so if you can also provide us some color in terms of how does the revenue get shared, or what what are the charges that GSI, we end up paying to GSI when we go through that route? How does that work?
So I think it's typically many multiple reseller models or reference models. So predominantly GSI's interest is not on the sale of licenses or the revenue over sales of licenses. So GSI's interest is around the services around that. Because in a global company, if they roll out licenses for $2 million, they may have a $50 million service around that. So their predominant business is around their larger ecosystem of supporting infrastructure, services, global rollouts, while our interest is around subscription and licenses. So there's a clear-cut win-win. And finally, we don't have any role. Finally, our billing is to the GSI or to the end customer in certain cases. So we realize our part of the revenue.
Okay. And so lastly on this, if you can give an estimate, how much of our sales currently or say last year would be coming through GSIs in terms of percentage?
I think right now it's very small. I think just last year we have 8 orders coming from this bucket, which is a very small part of the business. But coming for in few years, this can be a substantial part of our business. In terms of values, you can write to Dipti or Investor Relations. They can provide you more information.
Sure. That is helpful. Thank you, sir, and all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Ashit Kumar, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is Ashok. So I have a couple of questions actually. The first question is on the number of active customers. So when I look at the trend of the number of active customers from FY19, so FY19 we have active customers of 540, and FY20 we have 560, and FY21 we have 550. So if I see the trend actually, in spite of adding the new logos of 81, 71, and 67 during the last 3 years, still if we see the number of active customers as on date, we are more or less where we have started in FY19. So isn't it reflecting that the customer attrition rate is going out of control in spite of adding the significant amount of new logos every year?
Yeah, so Ashok, I think it's a good point you made. So I think you have to understand there are 2 things. One is when we are talking of active customers, we are talking of customers who provided us any kind of a revenue in last 12 months. So some of these customers, which are typically, I think what has happened in fact this year and some part of last year is that the customers were smaller customers with smaller ATS renewal riders. So ATS could be anywhere from 2 lakhs to 10 lakhs to 5 lakhs. There has been a higher churn this year, as Mr. Nigam also put up in his call, that there's been kind of a churn where a lot of these ATS renewals could not happen. So that there's a drastic drop in the customers whose revenues are like in the 20 lakh or less than 20 lakh range. Customers who are above 50 lakh, and we have hardly any churn out there. We have almost a customer retention rate of 90-95%, around anywhere between 50 lakh. And when it comes to customers above 2 crores, then there is almost 97% retention rate. So on the business side, it has not hurt us, but on the net customer churn, you are right that there are smaller customers who have not been able to renew their ATSs. And some of these customers have been very partner driven in territories like Africa or Middle East, where we have not been able to access and even push for renewals of these kinds. It's our inability to do that. So we are looking at, when we look at as a company at the churn rate, we look at customers above 50 lakhs and what are the churn rates out there. And out there, the churn rates are very negligible for us.
Okay, thank you very much. So if I understand it correctly, it's basically on the number of customers side, we may feel that the customer attrition is there. But if you look at the value, then actually there is no real churn in terms of the customer.
Exactly. On the revenue side, there's hardly any concern.
Okay. So my second question is on the debtors, the trade receivables, which Mr. Nigam has mentioned in the introduction of the call. Actually, there is a note that some of the customers have requested for the payment delay. So can you give some color? Basically, is it just a payment delay, and in terms of the percentage of the total trade receivables, how much it would contribute, something around that?
See, I'm saying is, so none of those amounts are any material amounts right now to be bothered about. So if you look at in spite of delays, these delays have been all in case of these minor customers of ATS renewals, which I was just talking about, where the churn rate has happened. For our major customers, we don't have any concerns about either ATS or renewals or payments, because these are typically larger enterprises, banks, insurance companies. I don't think those have issues about. Of course, some customers have requested for adjustment, reinstating, breaking a single payment into 2 payments or 3 payments, or taking a discount of 3%, 2%. So nothing of a value which is material which I can share with you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jeet. Actually, this we have got a sense by looking at the DSO, but just wanted to know in specific if there is anything to know on that front.
No, nothing. I think that statement is out of order. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then the last part of my question is basically on the revenue growth. And of course, when we talk about the revenue growth, obviously it majorly depends on our sales efforts and also our relationships with the GSIs. And as of now, we do understand based on your previous statement that as of now, the GSI contribution towards the total sales of the reported numbers of FY21 is very small, right? So going forward, can we say our sales effort, can draw the similar kind of a revenue, and whatever the revenue we expect from the GSIs will be incremental to over and above the existing sales efforts?
Absolutely. So that's the idea. See, we have our own direct sales channels on which we have been able to sustainably deliver a 20% growth. So our plan is quickly to come back both in India, Middle East, Africa, and APAC, and the mid-tier enterprise bank in US to over 20% or slightly more than that growth rate. And all other channels should keep on, adding to that growth rate. So the issue is we are still slightly on an uncertain time for next 1 or 2 quarters. But I think, as somebody else mentioned in the call, the other markets are opening up. We should be seeing progress out there. And we should see as an GSI channel as an additive channel to the overall traditional revenue growth.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, the direct sales channels targets itself, we are keeping it as around 20% in line with our historical efforts. And over and above that, the GSI channels would add to that number. And we understand the tougher times, but fortunately, the mature markets are really out of the, or maybe already out of, or maybe they are mostly coming out of the crisis. So I think that should work.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the only one rider you have to understand. Most of the revenue in these cases is slightly back-ended because of the subscription. So actual effect on the revenue side may take at least 1.5 years to 2.5 years, 3 years to start reflecting. Because even if you book a 10 million order book, your revenue for that year may be only 1 and 1.5 million.
Okay. But on an overall basis, we are confident that the current year we should be coming back to the growth trajectory of Newgen where we are in history.
See, right now it's very difficult to talk commitment. I think the only thing what I would like to say is that this is going to be planned. This is planned for a growth year. Okay. And we will have to see how close can we reach to over 20% or near around that. But I think right now this is going to be more of a growth year plan.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. G. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may please press star and 1 at this time. And also please limit your questions to 2 per participant. The next question is from the line of Sachit Motwani from Param Capital.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to understand a little more on your GSI, strategy, which others have also been asking on. So you've mentioned a GSI-based sales funnel of 140 crores and 40 cases. So that works out to be just $500,000, $500,000, let's say per account. So is this more because of the subscription revenue, or these are only the subscription amount you've mentioned here, and the actual deal size could be much higher than $500,000?
Yeah, so you're Sachin absolutely right. I think this typically the order booking values for every GSI case is much larger than that. So what happens in some early stages of Sun, the numbers are not very accurate about unless we know whether the deals are going to be customers going to sign a single year deal, multi-year deal. Generally on the subscription side, you will have 2 to 3 year deals. So these amounts may be initially the sales guy's reflection of the first year's revenue which he can get from that.
Okay. And what would be the average duration of the deal that one can assume?
So I think what it matters predominantly is the perception, the planning on the customer side is around 6 to 7 years of when they're looking at investing in this kind of a system, at least to begin with. But the orders are generally released from 2 to 3 years. In some cases for all 5 to 6 years.
Understood. But so potential revenue, could be $4-5 million, but 1 year revenues probably could be $500,000, $1 million like that.
Yeah. So the initial subscription deal could start roughly around between 300 to 700K, and then can grow to around $1 million of annuity in 1 year's time. That's the kind of potential we are looking at larger GSI deals.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hardik Sangani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So just 2 questions. Sir, so in terms of our employee base, so incrementally we have not added any major headcount this year. So if we are expecting a growth in terms of back to what we used to earlier, so just wanted to know what would be the typical hiring plan, and secondly, in terms of increasing attrition among the IT services or technology players. So what steps or what will we need to hire more than what we used to earlier to manage those attrition levels? And secondly, due to the second wave, so is employee absenteeism or not availability of them becoming an issue in servicing our clients? That's it from my side.
Yeah, Hardik, couple of things. So one is that, there are a couple of things which have happened. One is the operating model of doing the business has changed. So there has been some amount of inherent efficiency which we have been able to all drive. So for next year, though we will look at the growth rate, but the net addition in manpower may be more flattish or maybe within the range of 100, 150 people, overall addition of people, not beyond that. On the cost of attrition across all, I think every industry, in fact, the whole IT is facing that challenge right now. There are higher attritions and higher cost pressures. So we have already taken actions about that. We are also looking at, we have upgraded salaries on November. We have upgraded salaries of some people again in April. We're going for another upgrade in sometime in the middle of the year, this year. So we'll keep up to make sure that our talent is protected on that. And, from the hiring construct, we are focusing a lot on our campus because, we need a specialized skill which is around our products and services. So that's where we are concentrating. We'll be looking at, increasing the kind of hiring intake at the campus level so that we have a lot of capacity over the year for both as well as growth and managing the business. Sorry, I think you had a last part of your question was about the concern about, the COVID. In the month of April, I think there have been a week or 10 days where there was kind of an impact on day-to-day operations of business, but especially for the projects which are long-running projects, not in the cases of supporting customers and enhancing. So I think all the customers across the whole globe have been very sympathetic about that. They have asked their teams to take time. They have advised, tried to help us in many, many ways. I think we have been past those 3 weeks have been difficult for everybody. I think now probably those couple of weeks will be difficult in places like Chennai or Bangalore. But I think beyond a few weeks of impact, which also customers do appreciate and we have been able to recover most of it over coming weeks, we don't see that as a lasting issue.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is from the line of KK Garg, a shareholder. Please go ahead.
Good evening. This is with regard to the comparative ROE which the company is earning, and the other companies like Tata Elxsi and Translab Platform. Their ROE is about almost twice and thrice. So what is it that they are doing and what is it that we are doing wherein our ROE is not coming to their level? And we have a cash of about 250 crores in hand. So whatever issues your company has, the same issues the other companies must be also having.
Okay, so I think I'm sorry, I am really not educated to the ROE question. I will ask Arun to probably answer that.
Sure. It's all right. I mean.
Yeah, sure.
So, hi, Mr. Singh. So, I think as far as return on capital employed is concerned, so I think currently I think we have talked about also that currently we are conserving cash for next 6 months expenses, and that is how we look at it. And in coming years, obviously, we can look at different ways to distributing cash.
Oh, that is all right. But what I am only saying is that those companies we are a part of industry. So how is it that they are able to get a better twice and thrice ROE, whereas we are only able to get only 1/3 or 1/2 of it? That is my question. So I think we need to look at that. Is the company looking at it?
So I think just to add out there, the return on capital employed this year we had around 27.9%, and I don't know about the other organizations, but each is at a different stage, etc. But we internally keep looking at how to improve the return levels, both at the capital employed and equity levels for the future years.
Yeah, because it's a total financial management, which is the work of the CFO of the company. And I think the company needs to look at that as to what is happening. And I think that's the point only that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Siddhant Singhi from Lucky Investments. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening to all. I'm Siddhant from Lucky Investments. First of all, congrats on the grant of patent for the new image processing system. I think that's interesting because I believe image processing is still a largely unexplored territory with widespread day-to-day applications, and it's got a lot of potential. My question is, which are the type of projects or client base and geographies that we will be targeting? More importantly, what is the revenue visibility as far as patent monetization is concerned? Thank you.
Yes, Siddhant. So, thank you. So if you look at most of our content management technologies, we'll have a strong image processing components on that. And a lot of our IPR generation activities are around that area. So when you look at image processing, the current patent around binarization is about how effectively can you extract information about mobile data. So this is one of the patents. And of course, we have many more patents in the same area. Probably they end up becoming a part of our portfolio stack wherever we are able to protect our long-term investment, our interest in technology, as well as differentiate the product in front of the customer. There is no direct correlation between patent and monetization of patents. We are not looking at, that's not a monetization tool. It's typically over a longer period of time to make our, able to stand, differentiate in the market and protect our interest against with the competition. So the image processing technology comes in our content management suites. It comes in our mobile capture systems, our scanning systems, which are sold across the globe for almost all our solutions. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anirudh, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hello. Congratulations on a good set of numbers. My question is on the SaaS and subscription. I wanted to know if there is a non-recurring engineering charge, assuming that there is this low-code platform which still has to be customized for every customer. So how is that accounted for? Is that baked into the cost in terms of the total term of the contract that you have? And in that line, I would also want to know what is the from that angle, I wanted to know generally what is the term of the contract and things like that. And second thing, in your global system integrator kind of business, so the system integrator takes care of the NRE, or do you take care of the NRE?
Yeah, Charles, thanks for the question. So when we are talking of SaaS or subscription part of the revenue, we are talking of the revenue streams which have got no service components attached to it. These are typically high gross margins. So you are right, for some complex applications, whether they are on low code, they still need to be customized, integrated for the platform. And there may be service orders coming for updatation of that. But those revenue streams we treat outside our SaaS and subscription revenue. So your contracts could be more complex with a customer, that it could have an element of SaaS revenue as well as element of service components or an implementation component. For GSIs, we are predominantly focusing on only the subscription and the license part of that, while as the implementation as well as the long-term support and enhancement is handled by the GSI.
Okay, now in generally the GSI part, so the billing, you would bill to the GSI or to the end client? Like who would be your customer?
So in this case, say for any software company,
I don't want a specific answer, but I want a general answer about that.
No, it doesn't matter. I think the specific answer, if you look at for any product company, when the customer is acquiring, the end customer is the end customer. So there is a direct visibility of Newgen products and platforms because they're evaluated by the customer apart from the GSI. So GSI is also helping in the sales cycle, but the decision maker is customer. So the contracting sometimes is through GSI because the GSI has got the wholesale outsourcing engagement. But sometimes also the customers see that the product life cycles are even beyond the GSI life cycle. So they end up having direct contracts with the customer. So we have both models today, in the market where we are eventually GSI is carrying us to the customer, but the customer is finally contracting directly with us, or the contract is getting routed through the GSI.
Okay. And second thing I wanted to know, generally on the SaaS business, now, it's more in terms of how weathered to the infrastructure cost. Like there is, in SaaS business, there is that, the cloud infrastructure cost, right? Now, is it directly linked to the contract term, or are we weathered to that particular cost? I mean, maybe you can give an idea about whether you use public cloud or your own cloud infrastructure for.
We are hosted on AWS. We are hosting on AWS.
Okay.
Broadly, the mechanics is because we want to make sure that the overall underlying infrastructure cost is less than around 15% of the overall subscription cost.
Okay. So that's still variable then. So if the contract ends, you can always reduce the cost of that particular thing immediately.
Yeah. So there's a variable. It's a variable cost directly.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Then there is an economy of scale as you go more and more.
Absolutely, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And congratulations on good set of numbers. Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for the call. For any further queries, you can visit our website or you can connect to me. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.